It's not often that I have been waiting all week for a hockey game, especially a non-Caps hockey game. But dude, the Four Nations has completely, I think, kind of taken over what is a quiet time on the sports calendar. And we were talking about it yesterday, like, oh, who could we get to talk Four Nations with? And I was like, Joe B, man, is there anybody
There you
better?
go.
Joe Beninati joins us now. Joe B, how are you, man? You've been enjoying a little bit of downtime, or have you just been missing the road?
A little bit of both, JP. Good to talk with you and BMitch today, but I didn't get a chance to get away during this Four Nations face-off break. I've had some things to take care of around the house, but all the while, like you were talking about, they put together this sort of made-for-TV event, and it's turned out to be must-see TV, and it all culminates tonight. It should be great.
But let me pause real quick with our Four Nations excitement. We all know Locker had heart surgery. I've seen the pictures from Courtney's Instagram. Like, I know he's doing well and working his way through it. Have you seen or talked to Locker? And just can you give us an update on how he's doing?
Yeah, I visited last week. We made some lunch. We brought out there and visited with Ryan Billy, our producer, was there.
Great.
Al Koken was there. A bunch of us were there that time. I know all of us have tried to make some flight paths out to the Lachlan residence. I'm going to actually watch our Pittsburgh game. The Cavs Pittsburgh game is on national TV, so I'm going to swing by Locker's place and watch the Caps get back into action there. From what I gather, he told me, he's feeling well. He has good days and bad. It's remarkable how quickly he was up and around and out of the hospital and out of ICU and off of medications, the heavy duty stuff. And so I think he's very much going along in the right place. But I think even he realizes, wow, this took a lot out of him, and it's going to take a while for him to come back, but I know that he will.
Absolutely. And we're thinking of him and the family. Now, Joe,
Always.
when you go to watch the Caps game with Locker, you got to try to keep him calm, I think. You can't get all fired up, man.
It's going to be fun. I'm curious because some of his commentary off mic can be just as good as the ones that are on mic.
I'm sure.
The off mic ones may have a little bit more sensitivity going. So I look forward to it. Very rarely have we had the occasion to watch a Caps game together without calling it. So this is going to be one of those instances.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be fun. All right, now let's get to the Four Nations then, because I'll be honest, after the Super Bowl, I kind of checked the Caps schedule just to lock in watching a game, maybe try to get to a game as my schedule was calming down. And I screamed on this here radio program, what the hell's the NHL doing? Why do they not have games right now when there's really this hole in the sports calendar? And it was explained to me that Four Nations was kind of thought up to replace the NHL All-Star game. And I wasn't into it. And then I watched a little bit of Canada, Sweden. And then I tuned in for U.S. Canada, the first game. And the immediate fights got me sucked in.
Yep, totally.
What has the reaction been to this tournament so far?
Really good. And it has to be. If you're a hockey lover, if you're a hockey fan, just take one look at the rosters. When you look at the rosters and you realize that these guys are going to go hard and play for their nation's pride, you sit there and go, wow, they have that guy and that guy and that guy. And you just go on and on and on. So it's truly a best-on-best kind of arrangement. And I think the league took a long-range approach. And with regard to international best-on-best, this was a good time to fit in the Four Nations face-off before an Olympic Games next year in Cortina, Milano. There hadn't been NHL participation at the highest senior level in the Olympics. They weren't there in the Olympics of 18 and 22. They didn't go to South Korea. They didn't go to Beijing. So the last time you've really seen best on best, including NHL players, would be the 2016 World Cup. And with that in mind, now they've got this rotation. Let's go Four Nations face-off in 25, 26 Olympics, bring the World Cup back in February of 28, go back to the Olympics in the French Alps in 30. So you're going to get this every 2 years or so, best on best competitions. And this just gets it off to a flying start. Again, The depth of talent is amazing. Just have a look at the rosters and you'll go, whoa.
Is it going to be the same nations every time, or are they going to add others into it?
The Four Nations thing, obviously, with the climate worldwide, Russia not being there. Russia, I don't believe, would be in the 26 Olympic Games, but you will get a more full-scale approach of the international best-on-best and an Olympic Games BMitch. But as far as the Four Nations were concerned, when this was cooked up, it was just going to be U.S., Canada, Sweden, Finland.
Okay.
Talking with Joe Beninati here on the Rude Guest Hotline. Rude is the most reliable heating and air conditioning products in the DMV. You can follow Joe B at Joe B PXP. Of course, watch him on Monumental Sports Network calling the Caps. All right, so specific to tonight, there's a little bit of injury on both sides. I know there was a defenseman the U.S. was hoping to get. It's Joe, I'll confess, and I don't know that this is a shock to you, but like, I am a Caps fan before I'm necessarily a hockey fan. Like, I watch most Caps games, all Caps playoffs, but like, I'm not tuning in for Blues Predators on a Friday night. You know what I mean?
JP, this makes sense. This is why you call me. This is why you call me. I understand this.
Exactly.
This makes perfect sense. And Charlie McAvoy is not going to play for Team USA, and that's a huge loss. Cale Makar is going to play for Canada, and that's a huge gain.
He didn't play in the last game, right?
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
and
that's tough.
He's arguably, I think he's the best defenseman in the world. He could be the best hockey player in the world. And I know some people will shriek and go, how can you not say it's not McKinnon or McDavid or Matthews? I love defensemen, and Makar plays both ends of the rink at an amazing level. And with him returning for Canada, that makes them even more impactful. Up front for Team USA, from what I gather, and I don't think they'll be at 100%, but the Tkachuk brothers are expected to play. Matthews is expected to play. I can't imagine that any of those three are going to be at 100%, but 80% of those three is really good. So when you fold them into the rest of the USA roster, just an amazing game ahead. And here's one thing to remember. I'm not sure if people are aware. This game tonight, if it goes past regulation, if it requires overtime, it's not 3-on-3. There's no shootout in this one. If they go overtime tonight, it's Stanley Cup playoff overtime. They'll play as long as it takes to get a winner.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Do you think it'll be any fights in this one? Because it's the finals. But still, the nations are going to go at each other.
BMitch, it's interesting because, again, the roster depth, you'd sit there and go, I don't want my top guys in the penalty box for 5 minutes for fighting. But I've got so many top guys. If push comes to shove, the Tkachuks, and we're talking about it in advance. I think there's been reports about this group text between the guys for Team USA saying, hey, you know what? In that Canada game, let's stir it up as soon as possible. So I think they knew it was coming, and Canada obliged. Tonight, with everything on the line, you really don't want to be spending a lot of time in the penalty box, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if one or two breaks out. Here's the other thing with regard to fighting, and I'm amazed when it happens. That game had 3 fights in 9 seconds.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in the entirety of the NHL season up to date, better than 700 total games, there had been one game with 3 fights in it before that Four Nations face-off explosion between these two. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen very often. The fighting is way down, but it's magnified when you see it at that level of international best on best.
Yeah, I mean the beginning of that game was just so nuts. But then the McDavid goal, I was like, oh my gosh, Canada's got all the energy. That building was crazy. Mm-hmm. And then for the U.S. to come back was really, really an impressive effort. How do you think it goes tonight? I remember, did the Avalanche win it like 3 years ago? I remember the first time watching Makar was because I always hockey playoffs. I will watch whoever it is because they're just so electric. And I remember the first time really watching Makar on the Avs being like the speed that dude had for a defenseman was just mind blowing.
Yeah, and together with Nathan McKinnon, and here we go on and on with the talent. But it's hard in any sport, regardless of sport, to beat a great team twice in what would this be, a 6-day span?
Right.
Canada if you're gonna look back on history, Canada in past Olympic tournaments, I want to say tonight's the 7th time at the senior level, best on best, that Canada and the U.S. have squared off in a gold medal game per se. Canada's won 4 of them. The last 2 in particular at the Olympics in '02 in Salt Lake City, which I was lucky enough to cover, and in 10 in Vancouver. It is hard to beat a great team twice in 6 days. Advantage Canada. Makar coming back. Advantage Canada. If you sit there and say Hellebuck is better than Binnington, I'm not going to disagree with you in the goal. But Binnington won a Stanley Cup on this ice sheet in 2019 with the Blues. You get where I'm going here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really think the USA is built and ready to do it and ready to take down a Canadian team at the highest level. Canada's won 9 of 13 best on best all time, 5 of the last 6. I think it's time for USA, but it's going to be hard for them to beat this Canadian team twice in less than a week.
Yeah. I pick up what you're putting down, Joe B. Talking with our friend Joe Beninati, Caps play-by-play. You can follow him at Joe B PXP. Joe joins us via the Rude Guest Hotline. Rude is the most reliable HVAC products in the DMV. What can the building do tonight in Boston? We saw how outrageously loud and kind of nationalistic this thing was in Montreal. I'd expect these New Englanders to return the favor tonight.
Yes, and especially with so many of their favorite sons in the lineup. I think immediately, if you're going to put a spotlight on, maybe, hey, watch out for someone. It's someone like Jack Eichel, who grew up in the Boston suburbs, who played collegiately at BU and was one of the finest at the amateur level. Now that he is a top flight pro and a Stanley Cup champion out with Vegas, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody like Jack Eichel turns the light on to create a big win for the United States tonight. It just wouldn't. Mm-hmm. There are so many New England guys in that lineup, or guys who have played at least collegiately in that area. The fan base will be amazingly red, white, and blue supportive. Absolutely. And from an energy standpoint, I've had a lot of athletes, JP and BMitch, tell me, regardless of sport, again, when they have the chance to put on their colors, when they have the chance to put on the red, white, and blue, they feel like a superhero. And if that doesn't pump you up, then nothing else will.
Yeah.
They almost take this superheroic approach to the game, and I think it's amazing. I was wondering how they were going to play at what level. This wasn't going to be, I knew it wasn't going to be a grip and grin, all-star kind of friendly no-hitter, but I didn't realize that they were going to play at this level.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings in all the other injury concerns for the rest of the NHL season. I just cross my fingers and hope that nobody gets injured, that everybody's able to play moving forward. But when they get to this level, and I expect them to all be frothing at the mouth tonight, it's going to be pretty good.
I'm sure the owners are sitting up there going, oh, man, just play how you want to play. That's a joke. All the owners are probably like, please don't get hurt.
Well, dude, I couldn't help.
Because it'll be short-lived if you get a lot of guys hurt.
B said it earlier. When the Four Nations thing came out, I remember saying to Landfill, I was like, dude, the Caps aren't even in this thing. That's when we realized Russia wasn't even in this thing, and so on and so on. Watching the first 10 seconds of the Canada-USA game the other night, I think it's an advantage for the American team
that Tom Wilson
that Canada did not take Tom Wilson. Has that been discussed at all?
Of course. And I know through sort of back channel circles, and I think, and I hope Tom knows if he's listening today to the program, he was in very high consideration for Team Canada. I want to say he's probably one of the last 2 guys who was left off of the roster. It was that close. And there are a number of guys still in Canada's roster who can do who can take a similar approach. But Willie would have been amazing for the Maple Leaf team tonight.
Absolutely.
That would have just been off the charts. And Tom has grown up over the last 10 plus years as a pro to know when he can do it, what he can do it, how far can he push that, how can he walk that line.
Sure.
I think, and I know for sure, Tom would have used good judgment in this tournament, but he would have been a difference maker. He's the kind of guy who swings a pretty big sledgehammer out there.
I think the U.S. would have said, we're not doing this fighting thing.
Yeah, 4 Nations is canceled.
Hey, they got Wilson over there, man. Nah, I'm not doing that.
Well,
or you go get him.
Yeah.
You fight him. I'm not fighting him.
Well, dude, the third fight, and Joe, you're going to know the guys, but the third fight, so it's one Kachuk, two Kachuk.
JT Miller and Pareko is the third fight.
Like, the American dude was way smaller and kind of picked the fight. I don't think you do that with Willie.
Nah.
JT Miller is really, really tough, extremely talented, recently traded from Vancouver to the New York Rangers. Pareko is 6'6".
Yeah, the dude had a foot on him.
And mean as a snake. It was fantastic. And it was, as I was watching it, as soon as we saw Matthew Tkachuk go with Hagel, I was yelling to somebody who was watching the game with me, Brady is going to go immediately, and if Bennett is on the ice, it'll be Brady and Bennett. And for once, my forecasting turned out to be right.
Love it.
It's just, I didn't see JT Miller going with Pareko, but I think JT wanted anybody and anybody off of that goalmouth scrum. He happened to grab Godzilla, but that's okay. It was greatly recognized and appreciated by his teammates. I thought Team USA played beautifully. You know, not only are the rosters incredible, but coaching staff rosters are exceptional. And tonight's two head coaches, it's a brilliant matchup with Mike Sullivan against John Cooper. And I could say so many good things about everybody, both roster-wise and coaching staff-wise, all the way through, head coaches through assistants and associates. But that first game, Team USA defensively played exactly the way they need to play tonight. And I don't know if you can duplicate that with Connor Hellebuck in goal. And Hellebuck is fantastic in regular season play. I think Connor and the Winnipeg Jets have something to prove come playoff time, come April, and they just might. But when Hellebuck has chances to see shots that are angled shots from the perimeter, at his size, he's incredibly tough to beat. If they can do that tonight, if they can keep Team Canada away from what's affectionately referred to as home plate area in front of Hellebuck, they can do it again. They can beat Canada.
Hell, Canada. Joe, obviously we're focused on tonight. I don't want to peek ahead too much. You said Caps Pens, I guess, is on ABC or whatever. Does that mean your first game back is McDavid coming to town, Oilers Caps?
JP, I wish. That's 0 for 2. That's another national exclusive.
Damn, is it? Oh man, I legit didn't know that.
No, Monumental doesn't get back to work on the game front till Tuesday. We get Calgary.
Okay.
So Pittsburgh and Edmonton are both national exclusives. And Pittsburgh, Edmonton, Calgary, the first 3 games back after this break.
Huge.
Washington has recent wins over all 3 of those teams. But I just think the 8 or 9 days off, the guys are back on the ice practicing again today. I think that came at just the right time. I didn't like the way the Caps were playing heading into the break. I thought their best game in recent memory was one they played against Florida on February 4th. Florida looked like a Stanley Cup champion, played really well. Washington beat them at home. That's the game I take some solace from. The most recent games heading into the break, maybe the guys were on the beach already. I didn't like the way they played in the early stages of the Utah game specifically. They'll be better. They'll be ready to go once they're in Pittsburgh on Saturday.
Dude, Joe B., I never expected to have much of an opinion on the Utah team, but the fact that Ovi played out there, got hurt, then they came here and won. I hate this Utah team.
And well, you should. They a bunch of young kids who NHL fans will be familiar with from the time together in Arizona.
Right.
Always seem to play well against Washington, and it's the speed component.
I forgot. Was it 2 years ago they gave up a touchdown to Arizona in a matinee at Cap One? Wasn't it like 7-2?
I think you're remembering a game that the Caps played out in Tempe at the Arizona State rink. The then Coyotes put 5 on them in the first period. It was 5-0 after 1.
Woof.
That was a kick in the gut. That team tends to match up pretty well against Washington, whatever their name is and whatever their future nickname is going to be.
Right.
I just didn't like, that was one game in, I can't remember, where Logan Thompson wasn't Logan Thompson. Guys, he's been very much in the Vezina Trophy discussion for best goalie this year. It's probably Thompson and Hellebuck 1-2 or 2-1, however you want to stack it. And with as good as the Caps have been and where their record is at the time of this break, I'm telling you, Logan's deserving, especially in the last month when the team hasn't been all that great. Thompson's been MVP level good. And against Utah, he wasn't. So, again, he's human. He'll bounce back. That team will come back to that good level. And now you can almost start to see April. So now you want to make sure that you're playing the game the right way. And Spencer Carberry and his staff will have these guys motivated to do so and get back to the level that we were really enjoying in the first, 2 months, 10 weeks of the season.
Can't wait for tonight, USA Canada. Can't wait to hear you again on the call next Tuesday night. Caps, Flames from Capital One Arena. Joe B, as always, thank you, man.
All right, Joe.
I appreciate
Take care, buddy.
Guys, my pleasure. Have fun tonight.
Peace.
Joe Beninati at Joe B PXP. Give him a follow. If I was Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid and I got a mad Tom Wilson coming my way, I don't know, man. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, very much so.